It's 7 p.m. and we should be getting started with our public hearing for 47 Taylor Street. I don't see Civil Solutions in the audience unless you're under another name. If you could please raise your hand if it's Kevin or Kirk. Don't see him coming in yet. Brenda, how are you tonight?
Here in Brenda.
Brenda, we can't hear you.
Put something in the chat, Brenda, that you can hear us. Oh, we don't have a chat. Oh my goodness.
That is not allowed.
That's right.
She does have her hand up.
She can hear us. Put your hand down, Brenda, if you can hear us. There we go.
There's Kevin.
It's the Kevin Show.
Promoting Kevin Ritchie from Civil Solutions as a panelist. Dave, I'm having a tough time promoting Kevin Ritchie as a panelist. I just promoted Gino, but still having trouble with Kevin.
Can you see me?
No, but we can hear you.
I just tried to promote him as well. I don't know if there's something on his end.
Okay.
Okay, you can see me, right?
Yes, Gino.
All right, thank you. I had a little problem with this do not here. I don't think the phone likes me. Okay. Everybody all right?
All good.
Let me see if we can get Kevin.
Mr. Ritchie, can you hear us?
Kevin, you there? Kevin, are you all right? Can somebody?
All right, I have Kevin Ritchie on audio. Kevin, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, you'll be able to hear everyone else if they start talking. Kevin doesn't have a microphone on his home computer, so.
Oh.
So Kevin, we're going to start our 7 p.m. public hearing for 47 Taylor Street. You have a variance request regarding a local upgrade approval for offset to the property line.
Yes. So let me know if you can't hear me. But for 47 Taylor Street, I'm asking to reduce the offset from a pump chamber to a lot line from 10 feet to 7 feet.
Can you show your screen?
I can't.
Okay.
All right. Well, I don't have any drawings on this screen. That's 896. So that system was installed recently. The contractor moved the pump chamber. We had it in the initial design 10 feet off the lot line. When they went to install it, they were concerned with undermining the deck which was adjacent to the tank. They rotated the septic tank, which pushed everything towards the lot line a little bit. And then with the deck, they were concerned about digging that close. And so they ended up putting the pump chambers 7 feet off the lot line.
And they just went ahead and put it in because that's where they could fit it. Right, Kev?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, correct.
All right. So it's already in the ground and this is your as-built is 7 feet off the property line.
Yes, correct.
All right. Jim, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I mean, I went out to do the inspections and extremely tight lot. And again,
remember this.
between being right on the property line and that deck and going through the old system, it did make it awfully tight. Plus they had to essentially build it tanks first and come forward so they could kind of work their way out of the system. So, again, a challenging site. The board has granted a variance for the leaching area. The tank is tight, so there shouldn't be any water leaking out of it. I think they may have even used a monolithic tank. So I think the risk to the abutter is pretty minimal. I don't think there's an issue. But again, really tough installation to try to get all that stuff to fit in that very small area.
Any comments from board members? Kevin Davis?
I mean, how small is the lot, Jimmy?
Well, it's an acre, but most of it's the swamp behind the house and the pond. So there's very little of it that's, what you're seeing is what's dry, that little spot.
So it doesn't interfere with the septic system down there, right?
No, it's a new tank, and so it should be all set. I mean, it should all work for the house. It's just that it got a little too close to the property line.
Okay, so as long, you know, we have to accommodate the situation that the lot is got a house already. Am I correct?
You certainly try to work with the homeowners with the space that they have, and that's, you know, the challenge here. The space is limited.
Right. As you know, let's see what we can do to help the individual that owns the house. I mean,
Yeah, it's already in the ground.
pardon me?
It's already in the ground.
All right.
Matt Wason, any comments?
No comments, thank you.
Dan Kane?
Other than obviously it's always challenging when a case like this comes before us when it's in the ground. So we're in a challenging position. I'm disappointed, obviously, that the contractor didn't consult with the engineer when they realized that they had concerns about the install going,
Right.
What should our actions be before actually putting it in the ground? Because that puts everyone in a challenging position. And I'm obviously disappointed that didn't occur from the contractor side. And that's perhaps something we can follow up, that if the contractor is having a concern about the ability to install on a site, then that should be a discussion. That shouldn't be this is where we put it. Because now we're all in a challenging position of, we don't want to put this homeowner in a challenging position of going, nope, pull it out and rebuild it. The engineer doesn't want that. The contractor certainly doesn't want it because it would be on their bill. But we also don't want to be having variances after the fact when it could have been avoided with a 15-minute discussion between contractor and Jim and the engineer. I'd be curious to see if there's any abutters have any concerns, but it is what it is. It's built, it's in, do we know it's a monolithic tank from the engineer from construction?
My recollection is it was a monolithic. It should show up in the profile. Let's see. No, it does not call out to be monolithic.
Kevin, I have a comment. It's Kevin Baker. What's the minimum distance of pipe between the septic tank and the pump chamber that's allowable?
So there's no minimum, there's no maximum. The pump chamber is 3 feet from the septic tank.
Why can't it just be moved You know, I see it's 3 foot, 3.3 feet. You know, why can't it be moved back to, you know, to not encroach?
Probably at this point. Well, I guess initially when they called and asked if they could move it, and we told them, no, it's got to be 10 feet off the lot line. When we obviously shot the system and located it, it was 7 feet off the lot line.
Who's the installer?
Now the entire system is installed. It's in the driveway. That is the access to the backyard. Would be across the system.
Across the pump chamber and the septic tank.
Yeah. So the only access is down the driveway across the system and then down into the backyard where the tanks are.
Who's the installer? Just out of curiosity.
The installer was a Radical.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the mindset to have them move it back to 3 feet because you got it. I mean, it's nobody's mistake but theirs. But we'll see if there's a motion by the board. Let's check for abutters.
I guess if I could, no offense to,
Let me just check for abutters.
Yes. So we did notify the abutters by certified mail.
Are there any butters in the audience? Please raise your hand. Doesn't look like there's any abutters. I'm sorry, Matt.
No, and the same abutter was notified for the original design because we had to
Right.
reduce the offset from the leaching area to the lot line, and they were notified at that point and had no issues then either.
Okay. Matt, I'm sorry I cut you off there.
that's fine. What I was just gonna say or potentially request is, should we have the contractor actually give us an explanation or call out the specific concern or danger of doing it the way it was designed? Because I feel like I would be underinformed as to any decision I would be asked to make tonight.
Kevin, do you know why they didn't put it 10 feet off? Why they did it that way?
I don't. The only reason they gave me was there's a deck there, and they were afraid of undermining the post on the corner of the deck. They thought if they got any closer, that they would lose the deck.
You rotate. So this is Kevin Davis. The main chamber, they rotated that 90 degrees from the plan, and you're looking at, if I'm looking at the scale correctly, you're looking at maybe a foot difference. And so something just doesn't make sense why they positioned it the way they positioned it in the as-built.
They did rotate the tank initially, which obviously put more of a pinch on us. If they'd left it the original,
Yeah.
and they would have had more room.
I'm not a fan.
Wetlands in the retaining wall, or sure why that got rotated.
I'm not a fan. I like the idea of having the contractor come in and explain themselves.
Is there a motion by the board? Anyone?
I make a motion that we continue this to the next meeting so that the contractor that completed the work could come in and explain the as-built.
I'll
Some of their
second that.
decisions.
I'll second that.
Second.
Roll call vote. Kevin Davis,
Yes.
Dan Kane,
And Kane, yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Yes,
Matt Wason,
Now, Asen, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes. Okay, next we have our 705 35 Dahlia Drive with Kevin Ritchie of Civil Solutions, consideration of local upgrade approvals and variance to the Littleton Board of Health regulations. We are going. All right, Kevin, you want to give us some background on Dahlia, please?
Yeah, Let's see, so I was trying to switch computers here. I don't think I've been successful. 5 seconds.
Sounds like you are. Sounds like we got a little bit of an echo.
Yeah, it's from my phone.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I can see you on the other computer, but I don't think I've been, maybe I haven't been invited to the meeting. Because I logged in the same email address.
I'm going to promote your other profile here and see if that helps.
Okay, perfect.
You want to mute your phone, Kevin? There you go.
Hi.
Okay, so
right.
hopefully you can hear me now.
Yeah, do you want to share your screen?
Yes, let's see. You want to share yours instead?
All right, so you need a number of variances here.
Yes, so this is 35 Dahlia. You've had a Title V inspection done. It failed the Title V inspection. So we've got Dahlia on the corner of Dahlia and Grove. When we went out to do the test holes, we had DigSafe come out and mark out the utilities. The water department did not know where the water line was. We ended up finding it in one of the test holes. There was no shut off, no gate to that water water line to the house. So the water department came out and installed a gate so that we could shut it off while we were there digging our test holes. So we did find the water line. We designed a new system on this particular site. It's the Presby. The land slopes away from the house, basically from the house down towards Grove Road. The lowest corner, the lowest part of the property is the corner of the lot in Dahlia and Grove. So using the Presby with the reduction in the groundwater offset, we are able to make the system work by gravity. So we are asking for the 2-foot reduction in the groundwater table with the use of the Presby. We've got the water line there. Which one corner of the system is 8 feet off the water line. It's just kind of a pinch between the roadway and the water line. So we're 8 feet off the water line in that one corner. The rest of it would be 10 feet or greater. We can't move it any closer to the street. It would be grading out into the right of way of the road. So we are asking to reduce the offset to a pressure water line from 10 feet to 8 feet. The the site was too wet. There was a fair amount of fill on the site. And by the time we were down into the natural soil, we were into the water table, so we were unable to run the perk test. So we're asking to use the sieve analysis. And then we've got fill within 10 feet of the property line. And that property line would be the right of way for Dahlia Drive, just on the lower edge, along Dahlia Drive.
Jim, do you have any comments on this?
Again, as Kevin mentioned, lots of fill. So trying to dig down to get a perk. Unfortunately, we're in the water table by the time we did it. The groundwater offset allows you to keep the fill on the site, so you're not getting across the lot line with it. There is all top water. And again, the water line, I guess we know now because they dug it up during one of the test holes where it is. But again, try to stay away from that water line best we can. There's a small portion of the system that will encroach. It's probably one of the bigger lots down the neighborhood, so they're able to get a full, good sized system on the site. Again, I think it's the best you could probably do on the site.
Board member comments, Kevin Davis?
You can't move the Presby system to the northeast corner? Question mark?
Yeah, so if we moved it to the northeast corner, we would end up needing a pump to feed the system.
So, but
it would go from gravity to a pump system.
But you would be away from the water line, or is there a way that you can move the system the 2 feet towards the driveway and extend the pipe and make it more of a, instead of a 45, make it more of a 90?
Right. Yeah, no. So as we move the system towards the driveway, the grade does rise. So we would be elevating the system as we slide it in that direction.
You digging it into the ground more?
Yeah, no, we would not want to dig it into the ground. We want to maintain the groundwater at least the minimum of the 2 foot.
Oh, because of
the grade rises there. So as we push it up the hill, we would raise it as well.
Yeah, I have a concern. I know it's a water pipe. I get it. I understand it's not a well. I understand all that stuff, but I'm really nervous having it at the 2 foot mark there, and just to save a few $1,000s versus having that in there. I get the trade. I understand it. I'm just not comfortable with it. Not enough to propose a major change, but I'm just not comfortable. See how everybody else feels about it.
Gino Fratelloni?
I have a follow-up.
Gino, you have to unmute. Gino, you have to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yep.
Okay. Why don't we ask Jimmy his opinion, because it's very valuable, okay? And I can see I'm on the regular phone here, and I don't have any information. But the question is, let's see what the board thinks, and they specify. And if they have to come back, we'll make them come back. But Jimmy's supposed to give us a better answer. Can you ask Jimmy?
We did. Thank you. Dan Kane.
I'm kind of with Kevin. I agree that this is, the lot is actually for that neighborhood enormous. It's a nice change, I'm sure, as an engineer, seeing some space down there to work for one of these houses. What's the price difference? I know you didn't design this, but using your professional experience, ballpark from this design system to a pump system. Obviously, we want to minimize additional complexity and cost in the system, but if it went to the northeast corner, so it was away from the lot lines, away from the water line, how much would that add to the system?
I would guess that adding the pump would add probably $6,000 or $7,000 to the overall cost.
What's the cost of the system is designed?
I don't know.
Okay, no other questions right now.
Matt Wason?
Yeah, we're all having the same thoughts. What's the height difference that you can have between the tank and the field in order to still use gravity.
So we'd probably want at least a minimum of a 1% slope from the tank down to the distribution box.
Yeah.
And,
Because could you actually move the tank west because it gets further upslope, and then bring that whole field up and potentially turn the field 90 degrees so that you're at least within that 100-foot line?
I think the problem with moving the tank further west would be getting the plumbing out of the house.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where that was.
And into the tank.
Yeah.
There are two connections coming out of the house. I'm sorry, I'm going.
Yeah, yes, there are two connections, and that's part of the problem as well.
Oh.
Could you merge?
We try, yeah, no, we were hoping to connect them in the house, but there's a walker, it's a sliding glass door in the back where the cursor is right now. So we weren't able to run the pump, connect the two, otherwise we'd be going mid-height through the doorway. Ideally, we would have connected the two on the end and brought them out in one spot.
Yeah, I kind of agree. It's a lot of variances to approve in a location that has an alternative solution that would avoid the variances, but obviously incurs cost.
So in another word, they can't move the septic system there all? Can you hear me?
Say that again, Gino?
What's your question, Gino?
They cannot move the septic system, I mean, make a level, I mean, or maybe if it's too dangerous to put it too further down, can they lift it up like 4 feet and then maybe it would help it? But it, is there any way they can make it work? Or you need the pump? You need the pump then?
As soon as we start to move it closer to the house or towards the back of the lot, we would need a pump.
You're that close to the edge. Is the water table continue to be 2 feet over? Sorry, let me try rephrasing the question. Sorry.
Yeah, go up.
Did you do any test holes over in the back northeast corner to show where the water table was?
We did not do any holes in the north. No. I would guess it's worse back there, but obviously we don't have any holes, so I can't prove that.
I can see the problem. Maybe you can lift it up little, the septic system high 4 feet. You say, get away from the water.
Does anyone on the board have a motion?
Poor guy, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes pumps are just necessary.
Why don't they do things right for crying out loud?
I guess if we end up going to the pump, I'd be more inclined to move the water line.
Yeah, you gotta do something in order to be able to get the permit. It's too bad.
Right. We need a permit, so that's.
Sorry,
Before we do
Kevin,
anything.
could I clarify? Were you just saying that one of the options that would potentially be, I'm assuming, a lower cost than a pump would be to relocate the water line itself?
Yes, that was what we would end up having to do, I think.
Hmm. It's too bad, you got a big area there too. Too bad the water is.
Were you gonna dig up that water line anyway when you cross it with the septic line?
No, we wouldn't need to dig it. We'd obviously expose it at that point, but we We wouldn't be digging up the rest of it, no. We would only dig it up where we crossed it.
If there are any abutters in the audience, please raise your hand now. All right, no abutters.
I am not.
Well, we have to move on one way or the other. So if there's no motion by a board member, we can continue it and have them come up with a better plan.
I'd like to see the engineering. Yeah. Sorry, Kevin. My motion is that we continue this for a future meeting, have the engineer come up with alternative solutions. Not crossing the water line would be a plus. Moving it away to reduce that variance so that you're 10 feet away from the water line. Those types of alternatives.
Oh, boy.
So there's a motion to continue to our next meeting and hopefully be presented an alternative plan.
Yeah, I second.
Roll call vote. Kevin Davis,
Yes.
Gino Faralloni,
Yes, I feel bad, but yeah,
Dan
I guess
King.
we have to do that.
Dan Kane, yes.
Matt Wason,
Matt Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes.
Sorry, dude.
Next, we have a 7:10 public hearing, 73 Great Road, Kevin Ritchie Civil Solutions, consideration of local upgrade approvals and variance to the Littleton Board of Health regulations. Share my screen for this one.
So this one is 73 Great Road, which is down on the corner of Great Road and Gristmill, down towards the Acton line.
You're looking for a groundwater reduction from 5
Yeah,
feet.
so
to 3
this
feet.
one has some wetlands in the backyard. It's kind of a tight lot. It's got the utilities in the front. So this one, we are looking for several variances. Yep, so you can see it's on the corner lot of Great Road and Gristmill.
Mhm.
The utilities, the gas and the water come in the front. It's got wetlands all across the back. And the existing system is behind the house. So we're, along with the septic tank, we're proposing to replumb this one to bring the plumbing out the end so that we can get the septic tank outside greater than 50 feet from the wetlands, just kind of move it as far from the wetlands as we can. And then we've got the system there basically paralleling Great Road. So this one we have used Presby again. We're asking to reduce groundwater offset from 5 feet to 3 feet. That'll basically keep it in the ground. It'll come up slightly there in the corner. It's a little bit of a depression there, but it'll reduce having to mound the system. There's enough grade change there that when we put the system in and fill it in, it'll just basically flatten out the lawn. We're asking to locate the system 6 feet off the lot line along Great Road. So we're going from asking for reduction from 10 feet to 6 feet. Then we're going to kind of ask for a reduction from the foundation to the leaching area from 20 feet to 15 feet. And then obviously with the system there along Great Road, it'll have fill within 10 feet of the lot line.
Jim, do you have comments?
Sure. So as you can see on the plan, the wetlands take out quite a bit of the lot. They're able to get the system components 50 feet outside the lot lines, outside the wetlands lines. Again, area served by town water, trying to kind of fit it to the site so it doesn't mound in the front yard. You can see the shrubs in the front. So the lot line is inside of where people would actually see the system. So sometimes lot lines are deceiving where they own property wise. So though it's only 6 feet off the lot line, it's well off of Great Road. So it shouldn't impact Great Road in any way. Again, I think the system's headed towards the road. So the offset to the house though it's less than 20 feet, is a good distance from the house while you're trying to meet the wetlands offset and the property line offset.
Comments from the board, Kevin Davis?
You're going to be getting rid of that tree that's in the middle where the pipes are, or you're going to go around it?
No, that's a giant bush that will disappear.
Disappear. Good.
Okay. The more than 10 feet from the water line, obviously. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And all right. I have no further questions on this one.
Gino Fratelloni?
I think it should be okay, as long as he goes up and he wants a little bit higher. So it will help, he would be able to do his job. 50 feet, we usually, once in a while, we say, well, no, it should be a little bit more, but it probably in this case, that would be okay. Let's see what happens. And Jimmy, you have any question, please?
Dan Kane, any comments?
No, tough lot with the wetlands there and two roadways. I mean, this is a very good fit into the lot. So looks like the best we could ask for.
Matt Wason?
This is now within the 100-foot wetland buffer zone. So we now have new requirements for systems that are ideally going into that location.
Well, they're asking for a 3-foot groundwater offset, not a 2-foot. And that's because the percolation rate was 2 minutes an inch.
3 feet.
That regulation applies when they're requesting a 2-foot groundwater offset.
Oh, that's only for the 2-foot groundwater offset?
Correct.
I think this was also submitted prior to the change in that regulation.
I believe the regulation was finally published either the 28th or 29th of November. This came in before that.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Hello.
I'm making a motion that we grant approval for a reduction of groundwater offset from 5 feet to 3 feet. Approval to have a leaching area, reduce the offset from 10 feet to 6 feet for the leaching area from the property line. An offset of decrease the offset from 20 feet to 15 feet from cellar wall for leaching area, and to allow fill within 10 feet of the property line.
10 feet.
I'll second that. Roll call vote. Kevin Davis?
Yes.
Gino Fratelloni?
Yes.
Dan Kane?
Dan Kane, yes.
Matt Wason?
Wason, yes.
And Kevin Baker votes yes. All right, next we have our 7:15 public hearing, 548 Great Road. Still you, right, Kevin?
Yes, correct.
Consideration of local upgrade approvals and variance to the Littleton Board of Health regulations.
So
Screen.
this one's on the other end of Great Road, down heading towards Groton. It's down across from Beaverbrook Road. It's 548. The lot itself has a fair amount of ledge on it. There's ledge sticking out in the basement. There's ledge up around the house. So we've obviously put the system down the hill where we did find plenty of nice sandy soil. We did 6 test holes. The first 2 holes were off a Great Road. Were very shallow. Did not have 4 feet of soil. So we did the additional testing, and those all had 9 and 10 feet of soil. All a nice sandy material. The water line comes into the front of the house. Right now it comes in basically right beside the septic tank. I believe the sewer line and the water line are within a foot of each other. So we are proposing to replumb the house, change the plumbing to come out the end of the house, installing a new tank, so we'll get greater than 10 feet off the water line, and then going down to the leach field. There is another leach field adjacent to this. That's why the lot line has got that jog in it. Yes, there's a leach field there, and that's elevated, and that serves the house kind of behind and up the road a little bit from. So we're asking for two things on this one. We're asking to reduce the groundwater offset with the use of the Presby from 5 feet to 3 feet. And then we'll have fill within 10 feet of the lot line as well.
How big is their lot?
Gino, hang on, buddy.
Okay,
Jim, any questions, comments?
So again, trying to get a system to fit on the site. The geometry's a little strange. You've got the road, you've got the driveway, and all the utilities. As Kevin mentioned, ledge up by the house in the old system area. Whether we put the system where it was or where the other two holes are, you're going to run into a problem with, grading, potentially going, within 10 feet, but potentially going over the lot line if you raise the system up. So as requested, I think it's a reasonable design for the site that they have.
Kevin Davis, comments?
No comments.
Gino
No question.
Faraboni, comments? Gino?
I guess I have no comment because it seems like it's doing the right thing. It's got a lot of land there too, and I don't think I have any objection.
Dan Kane?
And Kane, no questions.
Matt Wason?
No, thank you.
If there are any abutters in the audience, please raise your hand now. No abutters. I have no comment. Looks good. I'll make a motion to approve
I second.
granting of a variance for groundwater offset from 5 feet to 3 feet and from regulation 27 to allow fill required to meet minimum breakout within 10 feet of the property line.
It's good.
What'd you say, Gino? Second?
I second.
Roll call vote, Kevin Davis,
Yes.
Gino Faraboni,
Yes.
Dan Kane,
And Kane, yes.
Matt Wason,
Matt Wason, yes.
Kevin Baker votes yes. Moving on to public hearing for
You're welcome, sir.
Thanks, Kev. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
You too.
720 public hearing, 2 Grist Mill Road, Evan Carloni, Innovative Septic Designs, approval of Evan, I'm going to promote you right now. Approval of reduction of groundwater for leaching area.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Hi.
Can you share your screen with the plan?
Sure, absolutely. Let's see here. Screen share. That's the right one. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
All right. Evan Carloni, Innovative Septic Design. Thank you all for having me tonight. This is the replacement system, 3-bedroom replacement system for 2 Grist Mill Road, which is actually the neighbor to 73 Great Road, which is just to the, looks like the, what is that, the west there. What is being proposed is a geomat system in the front of the house towards Grist Mill Road. We did that because of the wetland that's in the backyard. The current leach field is something around 20 to 30 feet away from the wetlands. So we're looking to do a tank and pump chamber, pump to the front yard with a geomat system. We did have a water table out there of 54 inches. We did have to take a sieve analysis, which I guess I'm just realizing right now we have to request that local upgrade and put that on the plan. It was too wet to perk. So we had put in for a 2-foot reduction using the GeoMat approval. However, I guess debatably it could be 1. But anyway, worst case scenario, a 2-foot reduction to the groundwater table with the GeoMat system and approval of a sieve, use of a sieve analysis for this site since it was too wet. The reduction is being proposed to reduce any issues with breakout towards that front property line and to, of course, just keep that front yard in decent looking shape. We will have to, we are proposing that the force main go off to the side of the house. It does cross the gas and water line, and the water line will have to be moved to maintain 10 feet from the field. However, taking a look at the routes here, it was kind of, I don't know, I guess it was lesser of the evils. I wasn't really sure which one was the lesser of the evil, crossing those lines or having a force main closer to the wetland. I had chosen to keep the force main away from the wetland, but anyway, that's the plan. And those are the proposals and the requests. I think that's all I have right now.
Jim, do you have any comments on this?
Sure. Again, wetlands seem to be driving what's available for a system to be installed. They can maintain the leaching area out of the 50 feet. But again, that groundwater offset reduction helps them keep that fill from any kind of fill from heading towards the road and minimizing any kind of mounding in the front yard. They're going to use a pressure dosing system for the GeoMat system, so get better distribution of the wastewater over the field. Plus, you end up with essentially double filters on the wastewater. The septic tank needs to have a filter by your regulation and by Title V. And we always recommend when they pump a GeoMat system that they put the GeoMat recommended filter in the pump chamber too, so it gets additional filtering before it hits the leaching area. So again, I'm not sure where else we're going to put this system. So it seems to be a reasonable fit for the site.
And just to clarify, they're looking to go from 5 feet to 3 feet or 4 feet to 2 feet.
So it's a 3-foot separation. I guess technically it's 4 to 3, but I'm calling it 5 to 3 because it was pretty sandy material, but we had to sieve it. So it's kind of debatable. Let's just call it 5 to 3 since that's worst case scenario.
Okay. Board member comments. We'll go in reverse order. Matt Wason.
Yeah, right where you were talking about, Evan, is what's the lesser evil coming around the east side of the house where you have it drawn and then having to cross with the water line, or going around the other side where the line would cross within the 50-foot wetland buffer, but is that the worst thing? Or would you have to flop the tanks then? Does that make sense? Would you end up with tanks inside the wetland, or would you be able to just do it this way and run the line around between the house and the garage?
No, the tanks could stay how they are, and then you could run the line the other way. Yeah, again, it's one of those things. It's there's really no easy way to do it. I think about Board of Health side and then conservation side. Obviously, conservation would like to see it this way. When you cross a water line, obviously it's not ideal. We would sleeve. We're proposing a sleeve 10 feet from the water line in either direction, and the water line has to move. Right. But either way, the water line has to move no matter which direction, because that's dictated by the system. But yeah, again, there's no easy way to get there. But right, which one's the lesser of the evil, I guess. Yeah.
Dan Kane.
Yeah, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness of your approach to this. You're moving the water line anyway. I think I would agree that, that as designed, keeping it out of the 50-foot buffer, so that's, at least you're not going back before conservation. The sleeve will be protection for it. It seems to make the most sense. I don't see any other alternatives, and it seems like a good solution to the challenge. So no, I have no other questions.
Gino Fratelloni.
I'm the same. I have no question. It seemed like it, the sign there the design looks proper. I don't think it should have any problem.
Kevin Davis?
Just a question. Could you have moved it to the corner of the lot, the front of the lot where that ginormous tree shrub is, and put it there instead of where you're proposing to put it? Would it fit there or not really?
So the reason I didn't put it there was one, for the tree. It is a beautiful tree, but that's not the primary driver. The primary driver is the fit. We'd end up having to move both the water line and the gas line instead of just the water line.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's I just curious question. So I appreciate the water line being moved in the gas and retaining where the gas line is. I appreciate that. Don't like the fact that we're gonna have to sleeve it, but yeah, sleeve it. It'll provide some sort of protection.
Right.
Geomat and that close to the driveway with plowing. I have concern about that. What's the offset from the driveway to the geomat?
It's a good question. Let me let's see here.
Sorry.
Evan, typically we just like to put something there as a precautionary so folks don't drive on the geomat, you know, like some boulders
Sure.
or some sort of.
Mhm.
Let me just pull it up really quick here so I can get you a number on that offset here.
Kevin's right. Kevin's right. You don't need to worry about the offset. It's the right thing to do is to stick some sort of large rock in
Right.
front of it, so that way we don't have
Yeah, 5.5 feet, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's close. Yeah.
big rock.
Yep.
A couple of big rocks, something there. You're gonna have to redraw it anyway because I don't see the sleeve on the print. And there was another thing that you were asking for, another variance that you're asking for, which isn't on the print. So
The sieve.
the sieve.
Yeah, the sleeve is mentioned by note 9 there.
Oh, is it?
Yep. Over in
Oh,
the
there it
plan
is.
view,
Sleeve. Okay.
Yep.
See it. Sorry, missed it. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yep. No problem.
Was there another thing that you'd had to change on the print?
Yeah, I'll have to add the request for the sieve analysis since it was too wet. That's I forgot to put that on there, but I can pop that in. That's
Do we want to offer the continuation? What does the board do for that? Usually, is that a continuation? Do you see the print again?
No, we'll just make a note that he'll need to provide that note about the sieve analysis on there as well as the boulders to prevent folks from driving on the system.
Right.
Okay.
That's good.
I don't have any comments, Evan. I'll make a motion to approve the groundwater offset, the sieve analysis, as long as you include it on the plan, as well as what else do we have? A regulation 27,
Mhm.
the grading,
no,
or was it just the offset?
just the offset. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And the sieve. Yep.
Do you have
I
a motion?
second.
Okay, roll call vote. Kevin Davis,
Yes.
Dan Kane,
In Kane, yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Yes.
Matt Wason,
Matt Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes. Thanks, Evan.
Great. Thank you all for your time. Have a good night.
Thanks, Evan.
Moving on, we have a public hearing for 4 Edward Drive. Dan Walsh from Lux Renovations regarding a deed restriction for finished basement. Dan, I'm promoting you now.
Where is 4 Edward Drive?
Dan, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Hey, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Thank you. So
Uh,
basically,
State your name and address, please, for the record.
my name's Dan Walsh with Lux Renovations, 60 Shawmut Road, Canton, Massachusetts.
All right.
And we have a 9-room house right now, 4-bedroom, that we're planning to finish the basement. We'd like to see if we can get a deed restriction to add that 10th room to the dwelling.
All right. We have your This is the basement plan, correct?
Yeah, I had sent in the rest. I don't know why the house isn't there.
Me too.
I don't know why it's not there.
Jim, have you seen the house plans? Can you just confirm the room count on that?
Sure. So I have them in front of me. I pulled them off the
Yeah.
town website. So there's 5 rooms downstairs and 4 bedrooms upstairs.
Okay. And you're looking to add a 10th. And
Correct. That's
we
one
typically
big
would-
area.
We typically would grant that with a deed restriction.
What's the septic design, Jim? Is it its own septic or is it shared septic?
It's its own septic. So this is the neighborhood we talked about last time. We had one other Edwards Drive-In. This is an area with because of the type of development, they reduced the lot sizes and conserve some of the land for conservation. So they're all designed right at the 4 bedrooms. And that's one of the reasons why these are a little different than some of the other lots in town. That's why I asked it to come before you guys.
This is the one that requires a nitrogen aggregation.
That's right. So the lots are all smaller than an acre, but the land is there. It's part of the overall development.
Board member comments. We'll start with Matt Wason.
So this brings up kind of thoughts I've had about how we do the room counts and such. If this were upstairs in the house, we would say, oh, well, that looks like a family room and a dining room and a living room. That's 3 rooms. But in a basement, we look at it and we say, oh, that's 1 room. So a piece of me just struggles with that. And I put it on had it on my list of things that, we as a board should kind of just talk through to make sure we're all on the same page. And I know previously that's kind of how we've always done it. And so I would feel obliged not to try to, apply some new thought to this plan, but it does bring me pause because we've looked at some plans and said, well, change that wall to a temporary wall and it's magically 1 room and you'll get your rubber stamp. So I think that's just my initial hesitation is that's a ton of space. And it looks to me, just looking at the plan, that's 3 rooms. That's how we would count that somewhere else. But as I said, I understand that's not how we've done it previously. So I think it's food for thought moving forward after this one.
Dan Kane.
I'm just curious, exits out of the space other than the stairs? I see
Yes.
1 window.
Yes, and there's a 2-car garage on the right side of that plan.
Okay. No, I think that was my big question. Again, I don't disagree with Matt on the whole, move this up 10 feet and this would be a different measure than it would be as a basement. But no, I don't have any other questions.
Gino Fratelloni.
Well, I have no question. The questionnaire seemed like a I like the way they designed that house there. Looks nice.
Kevin Davis.
Not that this is a requirement for the homeowner, but all the other comments I agree with. We have to think of this as a board. But as a comment to the homeowner possibly would be because that back corner in that basement, as far as an egress position for my looking at it, I would say that there's a safety issue, but again, we're not into the Board of Health sort of kind of thing. That would be more of a fire department thing, but some sort of door into that unfinished storage area to get in and out, or there is a door in those areas there. But yeah, I that's my only concern is that back corner, but I can't require that from a Board of Health.
Dan, just one question. How many square feet is the finished space?
600.
600. See, I think just as a board that anything over 300 square feet should be counted as 2 rooms. That's how it used to be. And I don't know why it isn't anymore, but I have an idea why. So I know there's nothing we can do about it tonight, and obviously precedent's been set. But just keep that in the back of your mind regarding calculations, square footage, and how many rooms they should be considered once finished.
Okay.
Are there any abutters? Please raise your hand now. No butters. Is there a motion?
Oh, we have, hold on. Somebody just raised their hand.
Oh,
Raul.
Matt? Did Matt raise two hands?
Accident, misclick.
Oh, Raul.
No, but there's Raul
Oh,
in the
someone in
audience.
the audience. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
He's the homeowner.
Okay. Raul, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Sorry, I was talking on mute. Hello, this is Rahul Vachasundar, 4 Edward Drive, Littleton. I am the house owner.
Hi.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, is there any restriction around that 600 square feet? And I think I just heard about it needs to be counted as 2 rooms or 1 room.
Not at this time. That's something the board will have to revisit and have a conversation about moving forward.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Any board member have a motion?
You want a motion? You want a motion to continue?
I mean, I don't know if there's anything that we can justify a continuation with. I
Okay.
think that we've already set precedent, and if we want to establish a new rule, that we need to talk about it in a public hearing setting and move forward and not deliberate
All right.
here.
Well, maybe I'll vote yes to see, make a motion to accept.
I will second that. Yep. Motion to approve and a second roll call vote. Kevin Davis,
Kevin Davis, yes.
Gino Ferraloni,
Jennifer, I want to say yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
Matt Wason.
I'm sorry, are we approving with a deed restriction or just flat approval for the work?
Yes. Let me withdraw the motion.
Thank you.
Gino, can you withdraw your motion, please?
Okay, withdraw the motion.
And I'll make a new motion just for the ease of time. A motion to approve with a deed restriction for a 4-bedroom home.
Okay, I second it.
Thank you. Kevin Davis,
Yes.
Gino Ferraloni,
Yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
Matt Wason,
Matt Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Give me a minute. All right, moving on, we have our 7:30 public hearing running a little late for 600 Great Road, Ed's Weenies, for consideration of a food truck service permit. I believe we have Mr. Mazzoni. I'll promote you right now. Mr. Mazzoni, if you could just state your name and your address for the record.
Hey, everyone. Mike Mazzoni from 17 Delaney Drive here in Littleton.
Hi there. So do you want to give us some background and then we'll have Jim give us some comment and then we'll talk?
Yeah, for sure. I got to preface by saying I am on a small work trip down here in New Orleans. And I don't know if you guys saw on the news, but we had a couple tornadoes that went by like just a couple miles from where I am right now. So we lost power and everything is good right now. But if for any reason, I lose my connection, just understand that's the case. So hi, thanks so much for the time tonight. Mike Mazzoni, I'm the new owner of Ed's Weenies, which I think many of you may know. It's parked over at Gary's Farm Stand in Littleton. The owner, the founder, who founded the company back in 2005, passed away in July, tragically after a long battle with cancer. I'm the new owner and submitted a permit application back in the spring. just trying to, partner with you as the board and the staff to make sure if there are any concerns with the hot dog stand that we address them proactively. My hope is that we can, keep this hot dog stand in operation as long as possible. It's obviously, a hallmark of the community. I had a meeting on Friday with Jim and we walked through some of the concerns, walked through the food code, the regulations, all of that stuff. To my knowledge right now, there's nothing listed in the regulations that we do not comply with. Jim and the staff raised some really important concerns that I think we walked through step by step together and addressed each and every one of them. There's some documentation that I'm going to need to do with Jim over the next several weeks with a couple of the items just to make sure that they feel comfortable with it. But my understanding, unless Jim corrects me, is that for the most part, we're in a little bit of a unique circumstances, right? That, this hot dog stand is technically a mobile food cart that may have the ability to move, but it's not feasible to move it on a regular basis. So we're hoping that the board, grandfathers us in. We've been operating for almost 20 years without incident, and, we're committed to doing that in the future. So thanks again.
Thank you. Yeah, I know one of our big concerns is setting precedent. So we're gonna have to be very careful how we go about this. But Jim, please give your comments and fill us in.
Sure. So I think at your request, Kevin, sent you the, I think actually Dan's, I'm sorry, through you, request for the permit application. And I decided I would include kind of the outline of the meeting that I had with Mr. Mazzoni on Friday. Went through, so the two documents I had sent the board previously, one is a question and answer for mobile food. One is the retail food code standards for mobile food establishments. So I took the retail food code standards for mobile food establishments, went through the sites in the federal food code, kind of made sure that the application complied with that. Where I thought there were concerns, and again, to Mr. Mazzoni's point, it's somewhat unique in that it's mobile permitting, and the way the question and answer section from the state says, kind of provides a big kind of gap for what mobile is. Two purposes for doing this, having Mr. Mazzoni come here. One is to kind of square this away for his establishment, to make sure the board's comfortable with all of the components. And I listed on there my main concerns, not that he doesn't comply, but these are the areas that I would want to know how they're being taken care of. And some of them to kind of memorialize so that we know for sure that, things like getting written approval from the water source. So we knew we had that, and getting a permit for the porta potty. So some of those kinds of things to formalize them, but also, anytime there's going to be a mobile food establishment that wants to just be stationary, I will probably have them come talk to you, just so you're comfortable with that. Because there's other issues, not just public health issues, but there's some other zoning issues, and so we'd want to make sure. I guess my concern would be is having that whole parking lot full of stationary mobile foods and not having the board have a handle on it. This is a unique situation because it's been there for 16 plus years. We haven't, to my knowledge, had any food service complaints or food-borne illness complaints, any complaints with sewage on the ground or rubbish or anything like that. So we haven't had any complaints. But again, I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Mazzoni. And again, I can certainly follow up with the paperwork that he needs to do as part of his permitting.
Thank you. Yeah, in my opinion, this non-mobile mobile unit is all but grandfathered in. We had a very unfortunate circumstance that the previous owner passed away and the permit had lapsed, and that sort of put us in this situation. Jim, I didn't know if you wanted me to run through those 7 line items that you had just called out regarding those concerns. And
it's up to you. That's why I figured I don't know if everyone had a chance to take a look at them.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone did in that email. I can share my screen if you like. Okay.
Sure.
Let me see if I can pop this email out of this. And all right. Share this. All right, so here this just review number 1, review approval of the water provided to the unit. approved source. And
Maybe
we're
it's
basically
easier
just
for me
gonna,
because I wrote it in an outline form if you want, Kevin, or
what's that?
maybe it's easier for me to kind of explain because I
Yeah,
put it
yeah,
in an
please.
outline form just to
Yeah.
remind me when we're having the meeting
Yep,
what I
go
need
ahead.
to talk to them about. So it may not make, hopefully it makes sense to people what the issues were, but so, you know, what we wanted to do is make sure that he had approval from the approved water supply. So fortunately, farm stand is connected to town water. That's considered an approved water source for the federal food code. We just asked him to get a copy of a letter from Gary saying he has permission to use that water. I think, again, back to the precedent kind of thing, we want to make sure that anybody who's down there, if they're going to be tied into that they get permission to it. You know, if there's only one outside tap and 6 people want to use it, I guess I'd raise a concern to the board about that. So
Well, there are those
There now.
adapters, right? That you put on the hose thing and then you got 4 hoses. up. Yeah, right.
that's going to be up to you.
Right.
So we talked about written approval and the time frame in which the water's available, just to make sure that you know, if for some reason the water gets shut off, that's his water supply. If it's not moving, that makes it kind of difficult to have water there on the site. Again, we have to get him that. The type of hose, I think that's been addressed. He's got a food grade hose there, and just the handling of the water line. So as Mr. Mazzoni mentioned to me, he has a water tank on the truck, so he can either, and then please, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, he can either run the hose direct for the unit or run the hose, fill the tank, and run the unit off the tank. So just how that hose is handled, make sure it's just not laying there on the ground. So if you're not using the hose, coil it up, put it away. So backflow protection, we talked about, you know, if he's tied into that building, there should be at a minimum a backflow preventer on the faucet at the building, which isn't a real hard thing to do. They make those little watt connectors that you can screw on. If you own an RV, they'd probably have them at the campground that you go on, just to make sure there's the town water supply is protected from any kind of backflow from the unit.
Sorry, Jim, can I interrupt just a procedural question here?
Sure.
These are the kind of recommendations, and you said you guys both talked about this already.
Yep.
And are there answers to all of these already, or is okay?
He provided me, like I said, he's going to formalize things with letters and stuff like that, and we'll check on the other things. Again, I wanted to provide the concerns to the board. We had talked about them, see if the board has any other concerns. Again, I think this is important because of the unit, and it's important because this whole mobile food is changing. The state's evolving their thought processes on it. So I want you guys as involved and as informed about it, so that if you have any questions, they'd have the opportunity to ask. And then we talked about making sure the water is always on, so they always have hand washing, water for hand washing and for ware washing. And we talked about, ware washing, dishwashing, essentially, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. The board had asked how much water gets used, and I don't really know. Mike was going to try to, they talk about in the federal food code washing hand for at least 20 seconds. I don't know how much water that equates to. And that part of it was more for the wastewater side of it. On the sketches that I sent as part of the application package, there are 2 tanks. One, I believe, goes to the hand sink. One, I believe, goes to the dishwashing sink. He mentioned that he has them pumped at a certain frequency. We talked about what happens if you have a crazy busy time and lots of people. And again, he could put together what he would do if he needed to get additional pumpings. You can have the contractor come out and pump the tanks more frequently. Like I said, we've never had a problem with the tanks. I don't want to try to imply that we have. It's more about making sure that we don't, and we've kind of covered those bases. The hand washing sink, probably for me, the hand washing sink and food temperatures are probably the most important things in a food service establishment. So making sure, in federal food code says you're supposed to have at least 100-degree water at the sinks. He has the ability to do that, and making sure the sink is available, has soap and towels, and it's at the proper temperature. So again, not that we've had issues with that, but again, just want to make sure those things are on and available, because that's really important for food safety in that unit. The bathrooms, right now there's a porta potty out there for the staff. They have a sink on the inside for hand washing. It's really hard. I mean, they make portable hand sinks that you can use, but they're cold water. So it doesn't make any sense to have a portable, one of these pump sinks that are outside for hand washing, because I'd much prefer to have them wash hands in the hand washing sink in the unit that has warm water. So, but getting it permitted, the board has a permitting process. We just want to make sure we get that permitted. So,
Real quick, Jim, if you don't mind, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Sure.
Yeah, for what it's worth, just two quick comments. So everything that Jim said so far, totally accurate. You know, we pay rent to Gary, so we'll be able to give you documentation about access to the water, provisional plans if for some reason water's not accessible because of the temperature, things like that. That's something we've dealt with forever. Real quick on this bathroom piece, this came up at the end of our meeting with Jim. So we have 2 dedicated hand washing sinks, one that's inside of the cart, one that is outside of the cart. We historically have kept that outdoor hand washing sink off. It's not a requirement, and it only invites people to sometimes, use it who may not be approved to. I think at the end of the meeting that we had, there was a question as to whether the board would actually prefer us to continue to use the porta potty that we were asked to install many years ago, or to get rid of that. We're totally open either way. If the board would prefer us to keep that accessible there with the, hand sanitizer and hand washing sink, that's fine. If they prefer us to get rid of that and use the, permanent facilities at Gary's, we're open to, talking about that as well.
So one of the things we talked about, the outside hand sink, it's nice that to provide a sink for the patrons outside, but given the limited amount of wastewater capacity, I said to Mr. Mazzoni, it's probably more important to make sure you have all that capacity for your staff inside. I'm not sure anyone has the expectation that they'll be able to wash their hands after using a porta potty at a mobile cart. And so I think in the interest of conserving the capacity for the employees is the sink. My recommendation is to not have the hand sink on the outside and just leave the hand sink in the unit on so the employees can wash their hands. That would be my recommendation to the board on that. There is hand sanitizer in most porta potties, so for a patron, if they just stop and use the porta potty, my thought is the only food he's or she's touching is the stuff they're taking with them, as opposed to the staff that need to make sure their hands are always clean for the patrons.
Yeah. And if any of you've been there, it's not advertised. Most people don't even know that it's there. It's tucked really hidden behind the storage shed. So it's definitely not advertised.
Is Gary's restroom open all year long when you're open?
It can be, yeah. So it is functional. Right now, we don't use it, but our staff has access to it if we need to. And if that's the board's wish, then yeah, we will have access to it. Right now, they do not use it in the winter when Gary shuts down after the New Year's.
Do they turn the water off?
They don't. Gary Jr. still uses the stand itself for his market stuff. So that whole stand is accessible during the winter.
Okay. So pest control.
I just would kind of go through that. I know my car, I drive it every single day, but lice and chipmunks seem to still get in my car. So we had that conversation about, a cart that stays, and people who have RVs know that critters seem to find their way into it. So he mentioned that they haven't had an issue. They do have the ability to do pest control and can do that if they find that they have a problem with the space.
Yep. And we have a relationship with, I think it's called Westford Pest Control. I forget the exact name of it. Yep.
Sanitizing, we went over what would be the requirements for making sure that he has proper sanitation inside, sanitize surfaces, sanitize utensils, make sure they are mixing it properly and making sure they can test it to make sure they actually have the concentrations that they needed. Again, not a lot of food prep on the cart based on the menu. So it's probably more important if you, one of the solutions in the regulations, if you have enough utensils, again, we prefer, because you have all the surfaces, they have the ability to actually wash and sanitize equipment inside. So has that ability. Food storage, we talked about a little bit, making sure that TCS is essentially perishable foods, making sure those are inside and at the proper temperatures. Non-perishable foods also need to be protected from insects and that, as well as single service items, so napkins, paper plates, cups, and stuff like that. Again, making sure the storage is proper for that. We talked about the importance of having food receipts from all the locations where he purchases the food. Again, for traceability, if somebody were to get ill, it's important to know, to be able to trace where the food came from. And for his purposes, if there's food recalls, it's important to know where you got the stuff so you can check those recalls and make sure that if food that you've purchased is part of that recall, that you can take it out of service. Employee health, again, It's amazing after 2 years of a pandemic and being told stay home if you're sick. People still don't get that. I don't understand. But we did review the importance of, particularly with food service, and it's great that places have long histories of no issues whatsoever, and so it's really good. But as we found with the incident we had with the school, all it takes is one person coming to work not feeling well to have a problem. So again, stressing that the importance from that. There's a little agreement that employers can have with their employees about just so they understand the importance of not coming to work sick. So we provided a copy of that for Mr. Mazzoni to provide for his employees. And then we just reviewed again the importance of hand washing and the safe food practices. He's served safe, and I believe you said, Mr. Mazzoni, you have somebody else who is?
Yeah, both of the two long-term employees, both of them have been there for longer than 10 years, both of which have food safe, the manager certificates themselves.
So that's a requirement of the food code. So in the food code says somebody who's supervising needs to have it. They have people on site that have it. So that's a good situation. So again, whether the boards has questions, if you're comfortable once we kind of dot the I's, cross the T's with the approval of this, again, I don't know that there's anything here that sets precedent. The menu is pretty simple. So if somebody came with a more complicated menu and you required different things or said, no, I don't think this is appropriate, I think that's an appropriate position. If there was a lot of food handling, that you may be having different conversations, but it's pretty minimal food handling. So the facilities seem to be in place to be able to, conduct a safe food business there.
All right, we'll do a round of board member comments and questions. We'll mix it up. We'll start with Dan Kane.
Sure. Pick me in the middle. Okay. All right. One, I'm a big fan of Gary's. I mean, of Ed since we moved here. It's one of the first places my kids actually got to go on their own once they actually got a little bit of freedom out of my neighborhood. So I'm glad. I'm happy that I feel sad for the situation, but I'm glad it's here with someone who sounds like they really want to make it a continuing part of our community. So thank you for that. It is obviously does have some challenges as a mobile food place that I've been in town now for a little over 7 years, and I drive by it almost every single day, and I've never seen it move. So a couple quick questions. We kind of hit a couple of them, but transport of food. So I saw from the paperwork, it looks like you're purchasing it from a couple different places, but Costco and some other outside vendors for stuff. How is that being transported from your source to the store, to the rest, to Ed's?
The stand, I guess, the truck, yeah, the trailer. Good question. So everything is delivered directly to the stand except for Costco. So there was mention of like US Foods and Restaurant Depot. Both of those have been excluded now. So all of the meats and most of the food comes from Gibson, Midtown Meats in Worcester, gets delivered directly to the stand at least once per week. All of the bakery goods, breads come multiple times during the week, all delivered directly to the stand. The one thing that is delivered by us is the Costco's, which is just the beverages, the sodas, the waters, all that stuff is delivered directly to the stand from us.
Okay. What about the temperature controlled stuff? Like I saw tuna salad, I saw chicken salad,
all of that,
potato salad, those kind of pieces that are more temperature sensitive.
So all of that comes from the same place that we get the hot dogs, and both of our hot dogs. They come from Midtown Meats in Worcester. Same thing. They're delivered all at the same time, twice a week if we need to over the busy season in the summer. During the winter, it's once a week. Pretty unique. We have 2 full refrigerators and a refrigerator freezer, so the capacity is plenty for all that.
Okay, great. So yeah, so it's temperature controlled from right. It's not coming out of Costco and Nashua and sitting in the back of your car.
No need
for 45 minutes for the transport or something. So
exactly, just sodas and water come from Costco.
Awesome. All right. And I know Jim has gone over, and you're served safe. So, temperature management certainly more challenging in the limited resources of a mobile establishment that would be in a commercial kitchen. The water holding capacity, I think that's certainly from an operational thing. Water supply, you've got an unlimited supply as long as town water is there. Do you know how much your holding capacity is?
I will have to confirm that for you. I believe it's 25 gallons. It's not readily labeled there, so I can get that information for you. As Jim said, there is an occasion if the temperature drops significantly, below 20 degrees, that the water will be shut off so we can fill our tank, and it's more than enough that we need for a day of operation. If for some reason the temperature drops below, we don't have access to water, we just don't open. Our plan this year, especially, is during inclement weather. I mean, it's just not affordable for us to be open. So anytime we don't have access to that kind of water system, we will just shut down. It has not happened yet, though.
Okay. I was gonna say, it's not, I'm not, I guess I'm not as worried just because it doesn't move and you do have a link to town water pretty easily. I'm more worried about, that overfilling your tanks or suddenly not being able to, we can't hand wash, we can't clean utensils because our tanks are full, we're overflowing and having to shut down in a hurry and potentially have overflow into the parking lot, into the grass next door. So
great. Just to comment on that last piece, again, it hasn't happened yet, at least during my ownership, talking to the staff, there's never been rationing of water. If we need to have a more frequent cadence of pumping, we're happy to do that, if and when that comes.
Okay. Hand washing around the porta potty piece. Certainly everybody has used one and sometimes there's hand gel in it, sometimes not.
Yeah.
I guess my only concern or question would be, for an employee coming out of a porta potty, if you're hand washing inside, I've now potentially, I'm sure no one does, but potentially have contaminated hands that I'm now walking through. I'm opening my door to the inside, to the kitchen area, and taking my dirty hands into the food prep area to wash my hands. I guess that's not a huge concern, but it's, everybody's seeing the employees must wash hands before returning to work. You're already returning to work before you're washing your hands. I guess I'm just not quite sure the best way of managing that.
I have a recommendation. So this is where I brought up that outdoor sink. So typically the process right now is it's a flick of a switch. So as an employee goes to the bathroom, they turn on the outdoor sink. There's soap out there already in towels. So they keep that deactivated only with the exception is when they go to the bathroom, they flick on that switch, they use the restroom. They don't have to touch any doors. They can use the hand washing sink and then deactivate that when they go back in.
All right.
Again,
Great answer.
feedback, if that's a good system, that's fine. If you want us to change that, happy to.
Yeah, no, that was my only piece of that. I hate walking in with, I'm a nurse.
No,
I hate walking into a clean area with dirty hands or dirty anything else. So that was kind of my question. High temp wash, you're going to be doing, my guess is 3-bin system kind of thing for your utensils on site. Are you pulling anything out for high temp washes outside? It looks like you've got a permission to use Acton Pizza's licensed kitchen. Is that just for prep, or is that for cleaning, or is that for both?
It is accessible for us for both. It gets very limited use, for ware washing especially is the only thing. We have a instant water heater on the truck. We're hooked up to the electric system, the town electric grid. So that produces all the hot water that we need. We do have a 3-basin dishwashing sink as well for that.
And Jim,
Jim's point,
good temperature-wise.
We're really just talking about tongs. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
No, I was going to say, just double check with Jim's good with the 3-bin system and the adequate water temperature for cleaning on site.
Given the limited food prep, as long as they're using a sanitizer and the third sink, then yes.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, you're not producing a lot of grease and stuff. It looks like you have an overhead vent for your grill. I'm going to assume that you're having an outside vendor come in and do your overhead cleaning, so you're not trying to clean those vents in your limited capacity in your sink inside there. So
exactly. And honestly, they tend to be it's just hot dogs, so it's not like we're dealing with hamburgers and stuff. So they tend to be relatively easy to maintain. But
all right, awesome. No, thank you so much. I think those were my big questions that I'm sure you would addressed, and you did. So I think that's all I had. Thank you, Kevin. Sorry for my list.
Matt Wason.
That's why Dan got to go first. I don't think I have any further questions because I think you clarified that you have direct water line, but you also then have a tank of potable water. So you're filling directly off the line to that tank. And then if the water gets shut off, you potentially have a reserve, and then that's over. From the wastewater side, I guess, is there a system? So how do you know when the wastewater is full?
That's a really good question. It has not yet been full, at least during my tenure. So we get it pumped out twice per month, especially during these, my gut tells me that obviously in July, they probably are more full. To Jim's point, the amount of warewashing and the amount of hand washing is increased. You can very easily tell, right? You can shake them, you can look inside of them. So we've never had an issue with them being full. Happy to, if there's anything we can explore as far as like a warning system or something like that, we can do that. I know that the septic system that we use is Aeroseptic, and we have a very close relationship with them, so they would notify us if for some reason it felt like they needed to pump them more frequently or something.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily say we need some, Wi-Fi enabled measuring tracking device hoodooky, but potentially consider if it's something that you do either weekly or daily as a part of opening or closing routines. Can you have a check of that tank?
Yeah,
honestly, even if it's something, approximate, I think it would put you in a safer position so that you would know in advance if one day you're closing and you go, boy, that seems more full than I expected it to be today. You're ahead of the game.
That's a really great point. I'm going to make a note of that. I think I have, I'm under the impression that that's something that informally that the staff who are there every day do, but I'll make a note of that to confirm.
Kevin Davis.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Matt.
Hi. My children also, that was one of their first forays on a bicycle to go to Ed Weenie's and kind of go do this. So I appreciate that being in town. For the 20 years that I've been here, yep, they've got that movable truck. It's been there for a really long time. So I'm going to make a point, not that this is a grandfathered system. I get that. But for new systems that are coming in that are, quote, mobile, I'm going to want to see them move somewhere because, yeah. So I want to commend, similar to what Dan was bringing up, the whole being a nurse. I'm not a nurse, but walking through somewhere where you've just gone to the bathroom and walked through your kitchen. No bueno. I really love the idea of you continuing to use the outside switch on, switch off. Bravo. Good job. I also like the idea. I'm a real big fan of checklists. I really like that idea of also adding to that checklist, not only looking to make sure that your potable water tank is good to go if you need it, but also the wastewater tank on that list, those types of things. I really appreciate that. The one question I do have that I didn't see anywhere was what happens if you have a loss of power, or do you shut the power off, which I'm assuming you don't at the end of the day to maintain your product. What is your loss of power? So that way, when they come in, it looks like, oh, it was down for 6 hours overnight.
Yeah, so we have a couple different things. We are able to, we have a couple different ways to tell whether or not there's a loss of power in the stand. And so if we do, we then have thermometers, just like any other restaurant, that measures what's happening in the refrigerator and the temperatures in there. If the temperature does drop below, we keep very low inventory on hand anyway. But obviously, that again hasn't happened in my time, but the staff there, I do believe it happened during that ice storm in 2013, I think it was, and they did have to throw away a considerable amount of inventory. I assume that we are in the same, very similar to almost any other restaurant. We are hooked up like directly hardwired into the power grid, so we would only lose power. It's not like we're on generator or anything like that. So we only lose power if the rest of the grid does, but we would have to treat it just like any other organization. If we know we lose power, we'd have to check the temperatures and then probably throw away inventory.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing, so the other thing, as a note to the board itself, I want to make sure that we're also sensitive to PII. On one of the pages there's a considerable amount of PII from the applicant that maybe we, instead of directly scanning that, we might want to redact a portion of that. Yeah, it's on the form, keep the form it is, but as it's being published, I think it would be a concern to try to protect a little bit of the PII of the person, just as a courtesy.
Appreciate that.
That's all.
All right. So, Jim, are you looking, we've had the conversation. It seems like all the board members are okay with all the terms and different ideas and processes that we've laid out here. Are we looking for a vote today?
Yeah, it's again, where it's kind of an unusual situation. Again, I think I mentioned kind of the status of moving, not moving, and mobile stationary. I really want the boards make sure that you're approving these things.
I mean, the one and only hesitation I have here is setting a precedent for future operations that will use this case as legal argument to get another situation approved that doesn't check off all the criteria. That's not a grandfathered establishment. So I promoted Tom Harrington here. I hope he's listening. Tom, if you can hear us, hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
How can we approve this based on everything we've spoken about without setting a precedent for another vendor to come in and say, well, you approved that one, that's been there for 20, 30 years. Unfortunately, the owner's passed away and we've had to sort of move sideways to move forward with this one. But what kind of language should be there for us to make a motion, get Mr. Mazzoni and Ed Sweeney's
So I guess
going?
give me a little detail on what would make this different or unique from
the main thing that makes it different and unique is that it is a mobile food operation that does not move.
Okay.
So there may be a situation where another vendor wants to come in anywhere in town, park a food truck and leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
If it works with zoning or if it's on private property.
Right.
And they don't meet all the other state and federal food code regs.
But this one does meet all the other state and
We've worked out, we've moved sideways to move forward to make it so it works.
okay.
From what it's worth, from my perspective, I think that the things that set us apart would be the menu, right? That we're not dealing with raw foods. We're dealing with all pre-prepared foods that we're reheating. We are directly linked to the power grid, so we don't run off of generator power or any other temporary electric power. And then there have been certain adaptations made to the trailer itself after receiving the original variances that would present a hardship for us at this point. The gas line that we have hooked up would require a licensed plumber to disconnect. So there are just a couple other things from our perspective.
Yeah.
And Kevin, if I could, this stand, if you will, or mobile vendor, as if you look at the history of it, has gone from a cart that was towed behind a car to and over time the board has taken actions. The last time was in 2009 to grant Ed variances from the previous set of food regulations that actually talked about it having to move in basis of operation and stuff like that. So there's been a history of actions and interactions with the board trying to stay in compliance as the code and the unit itself is kind of morphed.
So I think so Kevin, I guess I would go with the kitchen sink approach here. And that would be to kind of throw in as many of these facts as you can. The ones that Jim just mentioned and the ones that Mike had mentioned that make this unique. And I think it's certainly worth mentioning the history here. Not that the history necessarily kind of limits the grandfathering, but between the history and some of the unique attributes of this stand, I think that would be our best defense.
Okay.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah. I also have a concern that there's also another vendor's truck that seems to be parked to the left of it. I don't know what's going on with that truck, but if we put enough of the concerns in here that like it needs to be hooked up to the gas line, it needs to have power this, it needs to have a limited menu of pre-cooked foods and things like that. I'm looking at that one sitting right there going, oh, look, Ed Sweeney part 2. And I'm not really for putting another non-mobile unit there. That's my kind of, again, that I express that as a concern. It is a mobile unit. It needs to move a little bit here or there. What is the definition of move? That type of thing. But because Ed's have been there for 16 plus years, it's a long freaking time. So,
All right. I think I know what to do. Thanks, Tom.
and Matt had a
Oh,
something.
go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, a
Sorry,
piece
sir.
of me is, remember, I'm from Food Cartlandia. I'm not scared of food carts. Because this has been raised, I would be more interested in seeing the list of specific concerns about variances or things we are worried we're about to approve that might be a precedent we want to avoid. Because if somebody were to come and say they want to put a food truck somewhere else in our town and meet all of the same criteria that Ed's is meeting, personally, I don't see it as a bad thing. I don't think mobile food carts have to drive around all the time, just because that's my experience, and I don't mind that, I guess. So for me, it's more about, are there particular things we're most concerned about? And to Tom's point, let's make sure those are the ones that are very well documented with the reasoning why we as a board are doing that. So I think that would be my only hesitation about having a vote tonight, is that I haven't seen that exact thing documented out, so that I know that we've gotten all the things in order for us to make a really good, solid vote, I guess.
Well, I think it's everything we've been discussing, over the course of this meeting. The water coming from town water, the capacity in the wastewater tanks, the frequency of pumping, the hardline power, with no disconnect, the connection of is it gas or it must be propane?
Yeah.
The limited menu of pre-prepared foods, that nothing really has to be cooked. It's like warmed up or not. All those things that have been discussed, I feel, are the items of concern.
Sorry.
I'd say, most of all though is the history, and the relationship between the establishment and this board, to work together to evolve with the changing codes and the changing of that operation. Of course, it was none of us. Maybe Gino had something to do with it, but this board over time has had the history of working with this vendor in particular.
Dan, you had a comment, and it looked like you had your hand raised.
Yeah, Dan Kane, please go ahead.
I just want to make sure we're clear. So I think the scope of the Board of Health is to ensure public health and sanitation. I think, I think we're all in agreement, but that Mike has done a great job addressing the concerns and the food code and the state regs and our local regs. And I think just want to make sure that we are sticking with the scope of the Board of Health. If there are other concerns beyond that, we'll pick on Portland. If someone has concerns with Littleton becoming Portland East and having 5 trucks on every vacant lot, then that's, other than making Jim or our new health department or the board here very, very busy processing mobile food establishment applications, that whether we see 1 or 5 or 100, that's our job and that's our purview to address. If there are other concerns with quantity of vendors, locations of vendors, that I'm not positive, but I think that is probably beyond the scope of this board. So we just want to make sure that if we are concerned about the grandfather piece of this, that we are addressing it from a public health and Board of Health responsibility piece and nothing else. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
All right. Is there thanks for your help, Tom. Thanks for jumping in. I know we're going to see you on the next public hearing, but I'll just thank you for your input there. Is there a motion by any of the board members here?
I'll make a motion that we grant a Board of Health mobile food establishment permit to Mike, and I apologize, Mike, you don't have your last name up, and
Mazzoni.
Mazzoni, yeah.
Thank you to Mike Mazzoni, doing business as Ed's Weenies or whatever you're doing business as, to operate within the town of Littleton.
I'll second that. We have a motion and a second, so roll call vote. Kevin Davis,
Yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
Matt Wason,
Always and yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes. Thank you, Mike. Good luck.
Thank you guys all for the time. I appreciate it. Hope to see you guys there sometime soon. And our commitment is to do, anything proactively we can to address any concerns you have. So again, thanks for the time.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
So moving on, thank you, Tom, for staying with us. We have a discussion on Cooper Farm. We had, as you know, we had some applicants before us that were requesting to add some additional living space to their home, putting them over the typical room count that the board would approve, given a deed restriction for increased flow. They've since withdrawn their application, but it's brought us to have conversations about what to do moving forward with residents and homes and requests for increases in flow with Cooper Farm residents. And I'll let you sort of fill in the board on our best course of action moving forward. You're muted.
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. Good evening, everyone. My name's Tom Harrington. I'm town council in the town of Littleton. Don't get to see you guys very much, so thank you for having me. So I guess, so a couple of things going on, right? So we have what's a relatively new development that was the treatment plant was in the control of the developer. And we've learned that it's recently been transferred to the newly created homeowners association. So now the residents are in charge. And so for these purposes, and to reference, Jim Gareffi's written a couple of good emails on this topic that have been sent around. So I'll try not to repeat what Jim said, but Kevin, so I think you started out by saying an increase in flow, and I think what we're actually talking about is an increase in room count. So which kind of tacitly can, but doesn't always lead to an increase in flow. But kind of knowing that all these units are designed to a certain bedroom count, and bedroom count is how we size both individual septic systems and treatment plants like this. We want to make sure that when people are either finishing a basement or adding a room, that there's either flow capacity within the treatment plant, or we're getting the necessary deed restriction. And as Cooper Farm goes, I think we're looking to make sure we get these deed restrictions on record, so that from that perspective, we're keeping on the right side of DEP and the permit they've issued. And so I think, there was a spreadsheet that I think was done, which kind of identified, I think, a few owners that I think we're going to want to contact to just let them know that we're going to need a deed restriction from them for some work they've done. But looking at Jim, right now, we think this system is operating exactly as it was designed to operate. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think in the trying to explain that it had capacity, I may have confused the issue. I mentioned that Title V kind of looks at doubling actual flows to come up with a design flow, and so I kind of ham-handedly say that they were only using half the flow, and so it's kind of working in the way that Title V would have it work. And I'm not sure if people took that to mean that if it went over half that flow, then we'd have an issue. It really has, I think it's operating, the daily flow is still under 5,000 gallons a day. So it really has another 4,000 plus gallons a day before there's any risk of it having any kind of non-compliance issue. So I guess it was a kind of a clumsy way of saying it had plenty of capacity. So I apologize for any confusion that may have caused. So at this point here, I would agree with what Tom was saying, is that it's important to document what's there. People are going to use their houses the way they're going to use their houses. It is rare that we see so many houses. As again, back to the design flow in Title V, they figure 2 people per bedroom. And that's kind of how they come up with the flow of 110 gallons a day. So, I don't know how many of these houses have 6 or more people in it. Not a lot of houses seem to be built to the occupancy capacity that Title V would have them do that. But, houses do from time to time. So again, I think there's lots of protections kind of in place, even though the rooms may be there. I guess one of the things I've seen over 20 years is that people want more spaces in their house to do more things in their house. And during the pandemic, again, we saw lots and lots of that, and primarily offices. But it's no shortage of media rooms and gyms and playrooms for the kids, and so.
Right. And that's okay, but we want to make sure that we're getting the accompanying deed restriction in place, so that, future owners know what the rules are, that they know they're not buying something that, is going to be significantly expanded.
So what is our vehicle for making sure that each deed associated with Cooper Farm has either a 3-bedroom, if it's a 3-bedroom, deed restriction on the face of their deed versus the senior, the over 55 housing? How do we go about requesting those folks that don't have it on the face of their deed to get it on there? Because right now I think it's buried in the HOA docs, so you eventually get there,
right?
But it's not as patent as you would.
Right. So I think the start would be, and we can help you draft this letter, but it's probably a making contact with the HOA, getting the new trustees up to speed on this side of things. And from there, I think we can maybe use them as a conduit to some of these unit owners to make sure we get the deed restriction in place. And it's honestly not a big deal to put this in place. And we're here to help get the right language in place so that we can make this as seamless as possible. I think from my perspective and in conversations that I've certainly had with you, Kevin, and with you, Jim, we're just looking to make sure that we're ticking all the right boxes and we're putting the proper documentation in place. And that's going to help everyone in both the short term and the long term.
Absolutely. So we'll get in touch with the new folks that are in charge of the HOA, fill them in if they don't already know.
Yeah.
And then we'll look for a letter from you along with maybe a deed restriction template from Jim.
Got it.
To send over to them so they can have it filed, and then they'll just send us a receipt of them recording at the registry.
Yeah, or we can even
check mark next.
We can do the recording for them. We have
even better. Yeah,
we have the ability to record online now.
Oh, nice.
Which is a huge time saver.
Okay. Who pays for that?
The homeowner should.
Okay.
Well, I guess said differently, not me.
Well, not us either, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, we'll put that in the pipeline and get that moving, and hopefully after the first of the year we'll start to make some progress.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right, thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Next we have a discussion on food truck regulations. Jim, I thought Bridget was going to be here.
She had death in the family, so since I actually went through all this with Mr. Mazzoni, I figured I'd change my Boxborough meeting so I could be here, given all the hearings and this. And so I figured I would handle this.
Has the board seen the reports that I forwarded to Brenda regarding the food inspections that have been done? Bridget had an extensive list of everything she's been working on. I'd sent it over to Brenda. I don't know. I know she was out for a couple of days. It might have got lost in virtual outer space or something. I'll make sure that all gets forwarded to everyone. And then hopefully, Jim, we can get Bridget on our first meeting in 2023. So we can.
So what is it that you're looking to ever do? Just kind of.
Well, I think we want to talk about moving forward food truck regulations, anything in addition to state and federal code that Bridget's seeing out there that we need to include, especially anything that you're seeing out there that we should be knowledgeable of and potentially include in a set of local regulations to protect public health in Littleton.
Okay.
I think that's the main thing. I think it's going to be, you know, if we come up with anything, there's going to be like 3 or 4 bullet points that maybe, you know, haven't been addressed anywhere, and we've only seen it because you're in the trenches and there's a gray area and we just want to get rid of the gray, you know, and just have it be black and white.
No, and that's why with the, again, with Mr. Mazzoni, I started that meeting kind of explaining why we were doing this. And again, trying to formalize a process, particularly for mobile food permits.
Right. No, and I love the bullet point outline that you made. I think it laid it out very clearly. We knew exactly like what we needed to look at and what we needed to go over and try and figure out a solution to. That's great. I don't want you to have to do that for everybody.
Now we have the bulleted outline now, so that's good.
Well, yeah, there you go.
That's why I like outlines, because I'm getting old, and so it's always nice to have the outline to go back to.
All right.
Good night. Oh, Jimmy.
Over.
So I guess, you know, we can move this discussion, continue it regarding food truck regulations until we can get, you know, Bridget in the room and she can give us some of her insight too. I think, yeah, Matt, go ahead.
You can finish.
No, I'm done.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, Jim, would it be possible to get a list of food carts that we already know are permitted to work in Littleton?
Right.
Yep, I can get you. I think there's like 30 mobile vendors that are approved.
Like 30? Okay.
Yep.
Good. Because I know there's an establishment that's starting to rotate them through. And so I just want to
Yep, no, I appreciate that.
make sure we've got a list.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hey, Jimmy,
Yes.
Gino, I was wondering on a 30, do they always be inspected maybe once a month or once every other week, or just take their word for it?
So they don't get inspected that frequency. I'd have to check with Bridget with the frequency, so certainly
Okay.
not that kind of frequency.
Okay.
I didn't see any meeting minutes to approve in the packet, so I'm not sure where Brenda is on that. She's no longer in our meeting.
He
right
just
now,
left, yeah.
so I can't ask her. But it's a major concern.
Kevin, I haven't been able to read it, so maybe.
Yeah, Gino, there's no minutes in the packet.
Okay.
We're way backed up. We haven't approved minutes since like May.
I know, just to let you know, because I didn't think.
Would you do me
I
a
didn't
favor,
see it.
Gino? Would you
I
go
mean-
see Brenda tomorrow?
I will do it for
See
you,
if she
yes.
needs help with the minutes.
I will tell her. I
Okay,
will tell you, yeah. No problem.
thank you.
You want the
Uh,
minute from May, right? From May.
Yeah, May 13 on.
Okay, I write it down right now. Not to worry.
Thank you, sir. Regarding correspondence, does anyone have any correspondence they'd like to share? Any board member updates or comments for discussion? No? All right. Matt Wason.
I would like to talk about COVID and the other illnesses moving around our community at this time, if I may.
Please. Yeah, please do.
I'll keep it brief. If I can pick the tool to share. Here is our current tool. We are still looking at BQ11, and BQ1 is our most prominent Omicron variants in town. According to the data from Massachusetts, we're still sitting, we've hit 90% for ICU bed access in the Metro West area. So that is going up, and that is right at kind of what we've drawn as our red line. And as you can see, the Littleton case counts have just taken a dip up. And this has been following along with the wastewater data has also ticked up. Our CDC community level is still yellow. But what I also wanted to call out is I've added, and I'm thinking about maybe tweaking this tool a little bit more. This chart, apologies for the tininess of the numbers. I pulled this from the Massachusetts DPH site. This is RSV. So this purple hump back here was like the entire fall and winter of last year. And this purple spike is, this winter so far. Promising is that maybe it has hit a ceiling and it's going to keep going down. But this has been a big impact on our community and communities around us. And one of the concerning things is that RSV historically can cause some trouble in kids. But not only are these rates high for the detection of RSV, but we're actually seeing a lot more serious illness coming out of it. So it's a bigger impact on the community just because of the quantity, but then it's also a much bigger impact on our healthcare system because of the severity. And then the next step down is the influenza update. This is also state of Massachusetts. It was high last week when I looked at it, and it has gone to very high this week. So this was that kind of trifecta that I feel like it's not just about COVID necessarily. This is a trifecta of 3 contagious illnesses in our community that are all, at least RSV and influenza, are all in bad shape. And COVID is concerningly going in potentially the same direction. The other piece that I wanted to mention is that we've struggled with this up-to-date vaccination data for some time, just because we don't have a way to calculate it. But the CDC has started to report community uptake of the new bivalent booster. And our area, I apologize, I can't remember if it's I think it's Massachusetts. The uptake is okay for those 65 and older. It's about 55%. But for the general community, it's sitting below 33%. So it's about 31%. And we've kind of harped on a lot that vaccinations are just one of the best things we can do to try to protect ourselves from a little bit of spread and a lot of serious illness, ideally. And I'm going to keep looking at it and maybe potentially change this tool to start reporting that number instead, because I consider a 30% uptake of the bivalent vaccine as a red. I don't think that sets our community up to handle a potential influx of cases.
When were the bivalents? They came out in September? So,
yes.
So, and if that's what they're reporting, and that's basically all they're giving out right now.
Right.
So anyone who's gotten the other vaccinations, which are in this category, those vaccinations have generally waned.
Whether they
may be no longer effective.
Whether they've waned or not, the CDC is considering you out of date if you don't have the bivalent now, period. Unless you're under the age of 5. As long as it's been 2 months since you got your last dose of any kind, you are out of date if you don't have the bivalent.
And how long is the bivalent good for?
Until we have another.
Until we have another, okay. Or they tell you to get another. Okay.
Right. I mean, there's no answer to that, Kevin. I mean, if they come out with a better one in 6 months because we have new variants, then it could turn around like that. I think some of us maybe cross our fingers that the best case scenario is it becomes an annual dose like the flu. But no, I don't have an answer for that yet.
But a good way to look at this is that only 30% of the population under 65 is vaccinated.
The way they present the numbers is very hard to slice. So it's actually 30% of our community from age 5 and up. Of note, the 65 and over community are above 50%. So honestly, so they're like pulling the rest of the community up.
Right.
So if you look at the below 65s, we're probably 25% or even lower.
Well, we do have a vaccination clinic at the high school tomorrow, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. No, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And there's still slots available. You can come and pick up your free COVID tests, as well as some masks and some hand sanitizer. And we'll do it again next Thursday, too.
Good.
Yeah.
So lots of illnesses out there. I think it behooves people wear a mask when you're out in public. Protect yourself. Don't get the flu. Don't get RSV. Don't get COVID. Let's get through the winter holiday period safely.
You know, I think it would be great to, Matt, have you do a PSA with just a couple of these graphics for LCTV, because I think a picture's worth 1,000 words, and a lot of people might get it. So we can talk about that tomorrow. We can get Kirby and Dave on a call and see what we can put together, just to let the public know sort of what's going on. people are busy with holidays and other things and maybe not thinking about this, and they really should be.
You know, my goal is really to get the webpage in better shape so we can actually have like a one pager that you could go to and see some of this stuff in a more lively manner. I just don't have a lot of traction on getting that done.
I know.
Keep hammering away.
Did we send the letter over to our local school system to warn them about these rising cases?
It was sent to Liz, and we did not get it out to the schools at this juncture, no.
Okay. Did we have the meeting with Liz to talk about, or the chief nurse, I forget her name right at the moment, I apologize, about what's going on with the numbers from the school?
Matt, we spoke with Lynn Snow maybe a month ago. And there's no testing.
Right. I think it was about a month ago. It is just painfully clear that it's hard to get any, they don't do any tests, so they have no reportable numbers. So the system is 100% reliant on parents being willing to report numbers to the school. And then depending on the school environment, contact tracing is either hard or a joke. When you start to consider a kid has gotten on a school bus, been in multiple classrooms, been in a lunchroom, done sports outside, right? So we were pushing, and I haven't checked all the, we were pushing to make sure there was just stronger and stronger communication about asking parents to report cases, so that the understanding is, I kind of see the message a lot of, well, you know, if you've been exposed, do your 10 days, wear a mask. But I feel like that message has probably just been out there so much that people are ignoring it. I much prefer at this point messages that are more about, hey, if step one happens, here's what you should do next. And for me, step one is, if you find out your child has COVID, please do this next for the school. Then here's the link for the CDC information to refresh your memory. So she was going to kind of get some of that messaging more prominent to ideally enable the community to feel good about, yeah, I'm going to tell the school about it. Does that mean we have contact tracing? No, but it does, at the least, give the nurses access to some data to identify rising trends. And that's the best we got right now.
I know that's not the answer you wanted, Kevin, but yeah.
It's something. We've been pushing to try to figure out a way to, since the summer, to try to help with the schools interact and, you know, figure out some way of working on that. I know it's not there, but that's kind of where we're at. I understand, but it's like we're going from having something to having nothing, and that's just really hard to take from a public health perspective.
Yeah, we can just do the best job we can do, and you know, not worry about the things we can't control, right? Anyone else with a comment, update? I just want to take a look at the calendar quickly for our next meeting. We are going to go back to our regularly scheduled program. It's the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays, correct? Yeah. So 11th.
2nd of January?
January 11th and January 25th.
January 11th, 25th.
We'll have Brenda send out a schedule for the remainder of 2023, so we can all have it on our calendars. So,
since you mentioned it, not necessarily for the 11th meeting, but at some point, let's get it on the agenda to have that conversation about room count. And
that's like, yeah, first on my list here.
Okay, good.
So Jim, 300 square feet. When was that? That was in Title V a while ago.
No, that was your local regulation.
That was our local
You used to
reg.
have a local regulation before I came to town that stated that any room that was over 250 square feet was considered 2 rooms.
That's what it was. Okay.
And so for a period of time, septic systems were designed very large relative to houses, because further on in that regulation, it stated that houses that had 7 rooms, you design for this many bedrooms and 8 rooms. So there's a period of time where when people come in for additions, it's like, yeah, you can do it because you got, plenty of capacity and not that many rooms in your house. But you can see with that sketch that was put up tonight, kind of there's a judgment column there. And where it comes in a lot is around lakes with walkouts to the water. A lot of times people will have an entertainment area in the basement that faces the water. And so there may be a bar at one end and there may be tables somewhere in between. They may have a bathroom down there so people can, so how do you classify something like that? So when I'm looking at those things for the purposes of whether someone's coming to see you or not, I'm saying, are they distinct uses? If it looks like a big entertainment area, does it make more sense to call it like one room? Same thing in kitchens. Some of the designs show an eating area, a smaller place, or they have a bar there for stools around the kitchen, and they have a formal dining room. Well, I wouldn't consider the eating room a separate room for the purpose of a count. So again, it's trying to use enough judgment. I don't want to kind of enforce how people should use their house, not my business. But I want to try to, maybe it's the wrong way to look at it. How is this house going to be listed when they go to sell it? And make sure that whatever we're doing is kind of in sync with that. So it certainly seems reasonable. But because there's no real guidance any other way.
Yeah, I'm just trying to eliminate gray area.
Yep.
Too much
I think
left
there's going to be
open for
gray, but
interpretation.
consistency is probably really important.
And it would be really interesting to figure out why that those regulations, which seemed pretty reasonable, got removed.
There was a period of time from like 2007 to 2011, actually 13, where the regulations changed a number of times. Different boards can decide what they think are important for regulations, and that's kind of what happens.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that said, I think all we need is a motion to adjourn, and we'll work on the agenda for January 11th.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Kevin Davis,
Kevin Davis, yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Yes.
Dan Kane,
And Kane, yes.
Matt Wason,
Now, Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes. Have a nice break, guys.
Have a
Thanks
good-
so much. Happy New Year.